In this video, I discuss if my altcoins are ever going to rally again. I'm discussing everything surrounding the crypto markets, why altcoins haven't been moving yet, and what my strategy is for the upcoming months, as I'm sharing everything of my journey for you, for your journey. Let's get started. So the first important part is the fact that we've seen that Bitcoin is being pushed down. And it's quite easily to see that because through the previous weeks we've had a lot of news items taking place. And the first big news item was the fact that we had Mt. Gox selling Bitcoin, or at least doing the repayments back to creditors that have been trading on Mt. Gox back in the day. Now that news item is quickly away at this point, or faded away at this point, through which that is not really having a big impact in the markets at all. As a matter of fact, we are trading higher than that actual correction during that period. What we also see is the following, which is that the previous week we've had CPI data coming out, and CPI was super positive. As a matter of fact, CPI monthly to monthly became negative, minus 0.1%, while on the other hand, we also saw that CPI became lower, which is 3.0%, through which there was a very positive response on the markets, which is that the yields on the markets have been dropping substantially and the yields have been falling off a cliff, through which the yields have reached the lowest point since March 11th, which is, as a matter of fact, the day that Bitcoin made its new all-time high. So the yields have been dropping, and as you can see, the DXY is also dropping substantially since that period, but that's not that important. The yields are super important because if there is going to be a climate where liquidity is going to be increased, or at least the markets are going to be showing a case where the yields are starting to fall, so risk on becomes more interesting, that's the moment where altcoins and Bitcoin do well. Now, that is what is happening at this point, and Bitcoin was at 73k back in the day. It's currently at 58. So there is an actual reason of a downwards pressure on the markets at this point, which is not the government of Germany, but it's a smaller part of Germany which has seized 50,000 Bitcoin in January and started to ramp off these Bitcoin really quickly. They have started with approximately $3.5 billion in US dollar in Bitcoin, and currently, or I think actually after shooting this video, they are left with 300 million, through which the past days or the past week have seen a heavy sell-off from the Bitcoin on the markets, through which that has been pushing down the market substantially, and they are almost out of their Bitcoin, which is a positive signal for the markets, as it's very likely that the markets are going to reverse after this news has been taking place. And it's also very likely that there is a different topic going to be pushing the markets upwards even more, which is the Ethereum ETF. And the Ethereum ETF applicants have filed their final adjustments to the ETF, through which it's expected to be launching next week, which is the fact that if you're looking at Ethereum overall and the entire ecosystem, BlackRock is having its treasury or fund, whatever you call it, called BUIDL, built on Ethereum, and it has broken through the level of 500 million. So the big institutions are playing and building on top of Ethereum, while people on social media and the crypto sentiment are currently terrible and expecting Ethereum to continue to fall. Last week I've been going to ECC, and the amount of Web2 founders that are currently building on Ethereum or are looking to build on Ethereum is just going through the roof. So there is a big gap taking place between fundamental growth and the price and social media sentiment that is unwarranted, which means that these two are going to pace up at some point, and it's very likely that the Ethereum ETF is going to play a big part of it, as it has also been providing a big part of the fundamental interest from Web2 builders joining Web3. So it's the final stage, and I think that my strategy of going all in into altcoins is actually not a bad strategy to do so, because I feel after this week way more confident of staying in Ethereum at this point, as Ethereum is, I think, very undervalued compared to Bitcoin. And if you look at the entire scope, Bitcoin has been seeing a tremendous amount of interest in the previous 6 months due to the fact that we had the ETF, we've had the halving, and there is no real event taking place from this point due to the fact that that is always the case with the 4-year cycles. And that is something interesting that I've seen as well at ETC, is that there are a lot of great projects going to be built on ETH, and the tokenization is super massive. Maybe I'm going to do a video on that actually, but the fact that so many builders do not care about the 4-year cycle and want to build something for the next decade, and that horizon becomes that long, it is going to be a very drastic change to the markets that I think that we're going to have a very more stable and sustainable market, which is more narrative driven. So that is my general consensus. And then if we see the amount of builders joining Ethereum, my conviction even became bigger of going long on the Ethereum ecosystem. And if you look at the chart, you can see that since the actual approval of the Ethereum ETF that came out of nowhere, we can see that Ethereum is providing a higher ROI than Bitcoin is, as Ethereum is currently up 20% since that actual low, through which I am actually in profit on my Ethereum position against Bitcoin. And I'm not going to be looking to make more USD. I want to make more Bitcoin, and by having more Bitcoin I make more USD. But at some point I need to sell my Bitcoin back to USD, because the liquidity overall, the global market liquidity, is going to be drained, which means that risk on assets are going to be selling off quite heavily, and then I'm selling from Bitcoin to USD to make more Bitcoin, and that's the overall target. Now if you look at Ethereum, then there are periods that Ethereum does better than Bitcoin. And in the previous cycles, we've seen that in 2021, after the Bitcoin halving took place, you could have made a return of 290% against Bitcoin. If you go back one more cycle, you can see that there is a return of approximately 1200% to be made. However, if you're looking at the market size and stuff, it is not likely that it's going to be higher than 300% in this point. I think you might be even super happy if that is going to take place overall, because the larger the market cap or the larger the market size, the lower the returns will be, because the risks are going to be lower. But that doesn't mean that you can still make more Bitcoin, and that's my general thesis, through which in the past 6 months, due to the sentiment on social media, the altcoins have been selling off massively, but some of them have been starting to return to their neutral price levels, or have seen more interest than other ones. And I think that is a tricky one, or a very important one to realize, that is that if you are into altcoins at this point, just like me, then you want to be in positions that are hated the most and that are going to be likely to provide the highest return. So if you are interested into the ETH ecosystem, then there are many options. But if ETH is your base pair, as that is in my case, then I would like to bring up optimism against USDT and optimism against Bitcoin. If we look at optimism against Bitcoin, it's up 35% since its low. Zero interest from social media because there's still no hype. Optimism against USDT is actually entirely breaking back towards where it was a few weeks ago, reversing the entire loss of the previous week in 1 week. And that is a strong signal of either a bottoming procedure or a strong reversal going to be happening at this point. So I think that my bet of the ETH ecosystem is actually being approved by the fact that these coins are starting to run more. So if you want to get a higher return, then at this stage, if you think that Ethereum is going to outperform Bitcoin, then you can also make more ETH by staying into the ETH ecosystem, trading these altcoins, which we also have been seeing with Solana, meme coins, and everything in the Solana ecosystem that has been doing really well when Solana started to do really well. And I think that's going to be a very big topic as well. Another big topic is that I swapped older coins for newer coins, and actually I swapped them sincerely for coins that have been hated the most. we've got an article of Binance, which is low floating, high FTV coins, and I've swapped into them because, and this is a very important one, the markets need VCs, whether you like it or not. There is a very big discussion going on that the markets do not need VCs. And yes, there are some theses that you can do a fair launch, but for most of the coins, it's just not the case. So you need VCs to push forward projects to build tech before it becomes a public token. Maybe sometimes it's not even going to be a public token. I think that the focus on the fact that we are at low floating, high FTV coins is that, and that there is a high dilution of coins going on the markets. It's not based on the fact that that is low floating. Most of the people are focused on that actual topic, but I think you should focus on the FTV. The FTV is the actual important part here, which is that if you go to Web 2 and you do a seed round, it's between 2 to 10 million. In crypto, you can do a seed round at 50 million, and then you end up by doing a KOL round or private round at like 500 to 600 million, and then you start trading at $1 billion or more while you don't even have a product. That is the actual bubble that we create at this point. So it's all about the high valuations, which is being pushed up now as every VC wants to jump into Web3 because they know that there's going to be a higher return. But a lot of institutions are going to be losing a lot of money because they do not know the actual underlying valuations of projects. And that's why I like tokens that have a revenue generation model, which we are going to be seeing way more, through which you can actually value products. So we are in a big bubble. We are in a .com bubble. The valuations are too high, but some of these coins, newer ones, are having a super heavy sell-off, through which the valuations are very, very low at this point. And then you also see that there is a lot of shorts being opened onto these positions. If you look at TIA, the funding rate is super negative. Most of the people are currently short on these assets, expecting them to continue to fall. But you need to realize that in the previous cycle, we had Solana, Avalanche, all those projects being built from VC money as well. So I think that the subject is a little bit far-fetched, and I think that we're going to have a big reversal on these coins and that you can actually have a high return on them. So my game plan going forward isn't changed. I think it's super important to choose the right coins at this point, because the markets are going to be more complex and more complex due to the narratives that are switching quite fast, which means that if you pick the right ones at this point that didn't move at all, but are going to be in the next narratives, then you are going to be having the highest return. The second point is that holding my coins at this point is the best thing to do. I'm not going to be swapping. I don't want to sell for a 20% profit. I want to stick into my positions and continue to be holding them until the markets are getting a little bit too hyped on social media and start scaling off. The other thing is that I'm going to be moving more towards DEX trading, because there are a lot of coins on a decentralized ecosystem that are lower gem coins but are very interesting to have in your portfolio or in my portfolio, that are not on centralized exchange or not yet. And they are not meme coins, but some general AI or DeepIn or DeFi projects. You don't need a DEX, but I think a small portion of my portfolio I would like to include into a DEX trading, because there are so many interesting opportunities. The final important part for my strategy is, as long as ETH against Bitcoin is going to sustain above 0.05 BTC, I'm going to pursue my strategy and I'm going to stay long. And I think that the past week has proven that there is a big gap between social media and fundamental growth, and it made me more bullish about the tech that we're going to be building and the future of tokenization and a decentralized ecosystem.